Let's be clear, not everybody who's underbanked or low or moderate income is necessarily struggling financially. Some of that, is for different choices that they've made. And so the B side of this record is when you get a bonus, or you get a promotion, or you get a tax return, have a plan in advance for where you want that money to go and what you want it to do for you.
Welcome to Financial Freestyle here on Yahoo Finance. And listen, guys, we got a power-packed episode today because no matter where you are, you can never stop learning and being inspired. And today, I have the Lisa Frison, Head of Financial Inclusion at Citi. Lisa, how you doing?
I'm doing great, Ross. I'm so excited to be here with you today.
It's awesome. I thank you so much for being here. I wish you could give me some of that warm weather. This weekend is going to be 0 degrees here in Chicago, so hopefully you can bring some of that weather. But let's talk about kind of what you do. Like, I think when most people hear the terminology financial inclusion, it can sound kind of abstract, right? Not a lot of people understand what that is. So how do you define it? How do you and Citi define what financial inclusion is?
So financial inclusion is really about creating more on-ramps and access to the products and services that people need to address their financial lives. Citi has been in this work for a very long time, so really proud to work for a company that has prioritized that. But specifically, the role that I'm in and the team that I'm leading was started in 2022 to really continue and accelerate those efforts. And so what that means practically on a day-to-day basis is that I work with our business partners, our U.S. consumer businesses, to develop products and services and solutions and things, thinking about how we go to market to support customers on their journey and making sure that we're making economic progress more accessible for a lot more people.
I love that. I love that. So when I think of kind of financial inclusion, it's, kind of your target demo are people that are effectively traditionally underbanked, right? And sometimes they don't, they might not be, as forthcoming of going into a bank and actually seeking banks' helps, right? So like, kind of what would you say your role in Citi is when it comes to actually finding that type of customer and more importantly, giving them some solutions to maybe some of their problems they're having?
You can think about financial inclusion across a lot of spectrums. One is maybe un and underbanked. The other way to think about it might be low to moderate income consumers across the income spectrum. We tend to think about it in both frames. And so what we do is we have oriented a lot of our products and services and solutions to meet the needs. So we have some examples of products that we offer, like an Access Checking Account, which is a bank-on certified account that is low cost access to banking that was specifically designed to bring more people into the banking system and support those needs. So we have lots of examples of how we work to make sure that people are getting not just the products and services that they need, but also that advice and guidance that sort of helps people along the way.
So when you think about kind of the reason that you have kind of low, moderate income people being traditionally underbanked, why is that?
I think there are a lot of reasons why people are underbanked, and there's some overlap between low and moderate income. Not all low to moderate income are underbanked, and sort of the opposite is the case. Some of it just has to do with the access to services. Some of it has to do with trust in financial institutions. But I think we've come a long way in making sure that there are a lot of on-ramps, right? That if I think about one of the big roles of financial inclusion, it is to create those on-ramps so that more people have access to the banking system. And so a lot of the work that we do is really around that.
I love that. I think that, as a person with my own brand called Maconomics, it's quite often, right, you're thinking about what leads a person to effectively being, bad financially. And I think a big reason is kind of, their overall how they grew up around money, right? There's sometimes a mistrust of banks. Sometimes people have a bad relationship with money. So from a financial therapy standpoint, I always say in order to get, generational wealth, you have to overcome those past generational traumas. And so when you think about kind of the work you guys are doing, my question is, how is Citi helping consumers move from stress to progress?
Well, first, let me just start by saying I understand and sort of have been many times in my life kind of in that place where, you're navigating financial life And a lot of it in some ways has to do with your money mindset, right? That gets you into a place of feeling stuck or feeling overwhelmed. And so a lot of what we were doing is focusing on removing friction and making banking simpler. So one of the things that I always say is time is currency. So like where you can kind of help make things more convenient for people, whether that's with digital tools to help people understand their spending and planning. We also have our branch teams really that serve as advice centers that offer one-on-one support. So you can go into a branch and talk to someone. You can also do this on the phone to help get that knowledge and guidance that you need for the financial situation that you're navigating. But yeah, the stress is real. There's a lot of data and statistics about the stress that people are feeling. I think I saw a stat that people spend 4 hours a day thinking about money, and it manifests in a lot of different ways in our financial lives. And so it is something that is that I care a lot about, and that Citi cares a lot about in terms of how we are offering solutions to our customers.
Thinking about your financial troubles 48 hours a day obviously will impact a person's ability to perform at their highest level when it comes to workplace. And I know some companies are trying to do things when it comes to financial wellness. So
Mhm.
obviously I tip my hat to some of the work you guys are doing. My question is, like, when you're thinking about kind of some of those barriers that are keeping people from utilizing, because like I've done some studies and I understand, like, with these people that are traditionally underbanked. I remember when I worked at a hedge fund and I was underwriting a company that had a portfolio of, it was a specialty finance company, had a portfolio of like payday loan places. And I was like, without understanding what it was at the time, I was like, this is a remarkable investment. It's uncorrelated, but you realize it was effectively preying on, traditionally underbanked people. And so, like, when you think about kind of the role of a bank, where your role is technically to make money, how do you balance kind of, from a stakeholder standpoint and a stockholder standpoint, how do you balance like doing good and helping, kind of this group of people that effectively have been overlooked by traditional financial products?
It is a balance between, doing what's right for people and also building your business. And so a lot of it comes to like, what is your purpose and what do you stand for? And part of our mission is enabling economic progress for everyone. And so, you know, there are lots of ways to serve different consumers and be profitable as a bank. And, I don't think there is any shame. Like, we are a for profit organization. But I'm also proud that Citi, as I said before, we have invested in solutions. I'll give you a couple of examples of the ways that Citi is doing this to help make sure consumers get what they need. So one is my team specifically. We spent a lot of time understanding some of the needs and concerns and barriers for un and underbanked consumers. When I started, we did research specifically reaching out to un and underbanked consumers and also community partners to kind of understand what were some of the challenges, some of the things you can imagine, around debt, around saving, and also just getting information. And so we created a site called Citi Financial Pathways, where we bring together a lot of the inclusive products and services that we have, but we designed it and built it in a way that we also had education and information and guidance right next to the products, right? And we did that with intention. That's what people told us that they wanted, so that we can help people not just get the products they need, but also make informed decisions. So I think that's one example of how we do it. The other is that Citi is an organization that brings together the best of our business as well as what we do from a community perspective. So we do a lot in terms of our community relations and outreach, teach children to save, get smart about credit. We've also, so a lot of that is in the financial education and guidance space, but I'm also proud to say that we use our business to sort of support these opportunities. So one example is an affordable housing resident initiative that we recently launched to help people in affordable housing complexes learn more about, how to do rent reporting and how we can help with that, connect them with nonprofit organizations, and eventually help them to be on a path to home ownership. And that's an example of an innovative initiative that we've launched because we do know that it's important to sort of balance, the bottom line, as well as the responsibility that banks have and also embrace to do good in our communities.
I love that because I often look at credit as like the gatekeeper to opportunity, right? Whether it is buying a home, financing a car, sometimes even jobs will ask kind of, might even run your credit. And so when you're thinking about, some of those kind of outdated measures, so I actually want to go into that because I know I spoke with a gentleman who runs a company called Sisu, and the whole idea was like premised on let's help people get their rent being reported on their credit. And then there are other companies that say maybe let's get, your Netflix bill being reported on your credit. So like one, why did, Citi as a bulge bracket bank say let's find other ways to kind of help people in that demographic? And like obviously how are you guys doing that?
I'd like to use this term called, we talk a lot about people being credit worthy. My opinion, everybody's worthy of credit is, are you credit ready? And so it's really about thinking about their traditional ways to underwrite that have worked and have worked both for the companies and for the consumers, because at the end of the day, you want to be able to take on credit and take on loans that you are able to repay. And we want that for our consumers, but it's also about, are there other ways? And so we have spent time looking into alternative underwriting solutions, and we have found in some cases that it does help, and we can bring people into getting the credit that is thoughtful for where they are on their journey, and help them grow. So it's definitely something that we continue to look at and have already invested in.
I love it. That's awesome. Look, guys, we got to take a quick break, but when we come back, we're going to have more with Lisa Frison. All right, guys, welcome back to Financial Freestyle, where we are talking to Lisa Frison, head of financial inclusion at Citi. And Lisa, I love one of the things you said is like, we don't only just provide products, we provide solutions, but more importantly, we also giving people information. And so I want to say, to the parents that are actually watching this, what would you say are some maybe like the top three financial tools that they should prioritize when it comes to building long-term wealth?
One of them is actually a money mindset. So I think a lot of times we count ourselves out. We have this narrative that money is complex and it's difficult to learn. But, I really believe that we can learn what we need. And so just having a healthy dose of money mindset, I think, is really one thing that's foundational for everybody. And it's something that you can kind of control and reframe at any point. The second is to have and build a healthy savings habit, right? So just taking the opportunity to carve off a little bit, pay yourself first, and have that saving habit. There's a lot of tools, depending on which accounts you have, where you can automate your savings in different ways. And just starting small, but being consistent, I think, is really important. The third, I would say, is just a healthy sense of continuous learning to make sure that you're getting all the information and guidance that you need as your financial life changes. Like the way that I think about it in terms of guidance is sort of like having a GPS, right? If you want to get from one place to another, I could say to you, hey, Ross, to go from Atlanta to Chicago, go north. Okay, that's right directionally, but having a GPS, right, is different. The GPS, which was, by the way, one of the best gifts my husband ever gave me, it tells you what lanes to be in to position yourself for the next move. Like it helps you look out for when conditions are changing, and you can add a stop, but where how you're going toward your destination. So I think the same is true for our financial lives and making sure that you have a plan and a budget that can change over time, but it really is important that you take the step to tell your money what jobs you want it to do for you, right? And to say yes to the things that you want for your life. So the money mindset, the savings, and then having a plan and a budget.
My question on that is like, how do we normalize the conversation at home, right? It's one thing for banks to be doing this work, which is remarkable work. Schools effectively have not been doing this work. Now we're starting to see it kind of get adapted. With the almost like half the states across the nation when it comes to making it, you have to have financial literacy in order to graduate. But even then, it's not all the way there. Like, how do I think financial literacy has to start at home? But how, to the parents that are watching it, how do we normalize that conversation for our family and our children?
It can be an uncomfortable thing, but we have to get comfortable being uncomfortable. And I think, there are many ways to do that. One is just make it a little bit part of everyday life. You can start routines like having a money meeting once a month to talk about like where the family is and what are some of our goals and what are we saving for and how can everybody chip in. But there's also the opportunity to go and ask experts for guidance on the specific thing that you need to talk about, whether it's talking to your elderly parents about, what will happen as they maybe are not able to navigate life in the same way that they've been able to do that. Also, talking to your younger children about, whether it's a allowance. I didn't get an allowance. My allowance was that I could eat, that I had clothes. I didn't have allowance. But talking to your children about money, starting early and setting up accounts. But a lot of it is start by starting, right? There's this quote on my desk here that says, start by starting. It's not easy, but having the conversations and trying to make it a regular part of your family routines, I think, is what I would advise people to do. And the last thing I would say is, again, there are lots of, community resources, bank resources, et cetera. Take your family out and take some of that time to participate in some of those things and then go do other fun things. But I do think that you have to be intentional about it and you have to really acquire it for yourself if you're going to get to this place of financial freedom.
I love that. And I love your definition. As we approach the new year, right? The big thing is, what are most people's New Year's resolutions, right? A lot of it comes when I'm gonna eat better, I'm gonna work out. But another one is like a actual financial New Year's resolution. And the first thing you talked about when I was asking kind of what are three tips for the parents is money mindset. And quite too often, that's the foundation everything's built on, right? A house built with bad foundation is obviously going to eventually crumble. And I think the mindset shift early on is like, all right, why am I bad? When you look at the statistics, the average person is living paycheck to paycheck. The average person doesn't have over $1,000 saved. But if you were to give people one New Year's financial resolution for 2026, what do you think that would be?
Okay, I have to start by saying I'm not a certified financial advisor. However, the thing that I would suggest that people do, the one thing for the year is to set a savings and investing habit. And I think this would vary depending on where you are. So if you're sort of in that place where you have less money, you want to build a foundation, I think saving is important. But I also think that it's important to know that at some point, some people sort of the B side to the record, because we talk a lot about, those who may be having trouble or challenges. But let's be clear, not everybody who's underbanked or low or moderate income is necessarily struggling financially. Some of that, is for different choices that they've made. And so the B side of this record is when you get a bonus, or you get a promotion, or you get a tax return, have a plan in advance for where you want that money to go and what you want it to do for you.
So one, I just want to say thanks for being here because I do feel as though we are both doing similar work, right? I was a person that worked on the street and said, I want to find a better way to bring Wall Street to Main Street, to talk to a person that has been traditionally overlooked or traditionally felt as though this was too complex. When the reality is it's actually fairly easy. It's just a function of remaining disciplined and consistent because quite too often, we might turn on social media and look and say, oh, wow, I want that now. And we have to have that delayed gratification. But let me talk about you, right? How did you get into your work? What led you to being a person that is at the forefront on the street of financial inclusion?
To me, this is not work. It's a calling and it's an assignment for my life at this point. And a lot of it is informed by how I grew up around money. I remember one of my early money experiences is I went shopping with my mom to this grocery sort of superstore, and we were putting all these things in a basket, and she got up to the register and she didn't have enough money and she had to put something back. And that is like one of my first ingrained money memories. And it's like, um, I felt shame for her and for us, and really thought it, a sense of a lack of money dignity around that. And so I think that was a seed that was implanted in me early. But a lot of the messages that I got, we didn't really talk a lot about money intentionally. But what I saw was put something back. Money doesn't grow on trees. You got McDonald's money, all of those things, right? And so this notion about reframing the mindset and relationship with money is something that's dear to me. And then as I've grown in my career, I've seen data that says, we're in the greatest generational wealth transfer that is going to occur. And then Prosperity Now did a study that said, and by 2053, Black median wealth is on a path to zero by 2053. Zero. That is hard for me, right? And so my why is to really make sure that we see more people going from being spenders and debtors and consumers to being savers and owners and investors, and to make sure that I'm using my time and my energy and my talents to help bring these solutions to our folks and to the marketplace. And I count it a privilege. As I said, it's not work, especially to work for a company that also prioritizes this. And it's the thing that I wake up thinking about, I go to sleep thinking about, and not because it's a burden, but because it's something that I care deeply about and am just privileged to be able to spend my life doing this work.
That 2053 statistic is something that um, is something that makes me say, I on my watch, right? On my watch, I don't want that to happen. And so you can only control what you can control. And so I'm putting out content every day to hopefully make light bulbs go off on people across the world where it's like, okay, I'm gonna do this with my money now. Oh, I don't need to actually spend that. Last question, right? If you looked at the data today, what single metric would tell you whether financial inclusion in America is actually improving?
Unfortunately, I don't think there's one thing, but at the end of the day, it's really around, how many people are on a path to financial resilience,
Mm.
that is informed by a lot of the things that we just discussed. And how does that feel across various populations? And you really want to make sure that more of what I don't say, we talk about underserved, I say underestimated. Like, how are we bringing the people who might have been and underbanked or low to moderate income sort of having the same rates of success as those who might be more well off?
Well, listen, Rome wasn't built in a day, and clearly the work you're doing from the vantage point you're doing it at, it's extremely important. And obviously, if it doesn't show up today or tomorrow, it might, actually have a snowball effect, and it might be the next generation and the generation to come after that that now has a completely different mindset and relationship with money. And I think that's the big thing. It's never going to come overnight, but there's small things that will build in the future. So I just want to tip my hat off to you and say thanks for all the work you're doing.
Thank you. And my motto is educate yourself so you can advocate for yourself. And so that's what we want our people to do.
Well, I love it. That's it for this episode, ladies and gentlemen. I want to thank you guys for being here. Another round of applause for the Lisa Frison, head of financial inclusion at Citi. But you guys know what to do. Make sure you like, subscribe, tell your auntie and your cousins to also like and subscribe and watch this episode. This is Financial Freestyle here on Yahoo Finance.
This content was not intended to be financial advice and should not be used as a substitute for professional financial services.